Hi guys, we're back here with Coach Brad and Coach Chris Brolley. Today's kind of theme is going to be talking about our preparation for team talks. All right, so pregame team talks and halftime team talks, and going through some of our best practices. All right, so Coach Chris was friendly enough and open enough to let us kind of sit in on his team talk this past weekend at our Rush tournament. He's got the 07-08 girls here from Oswego. So, Chris, give us a little bit of background and a little bit of context for this team talk before we start.
So this is the second game of our tournament, and I missed the first game, so I was kind of getting a recap of what they saw from, the first game and things we can build off of. Most of these players played together last year, but with only having, a couple of days of practice before, we've been really focusing on a couple of things like keeping the ball and combining and connecting. So that's kind of where we're at as we started here.
Sweet. All right, with that said, we'll play the halftime team talk and then we'll reflect on it after.
Hey, building off of earlier games, right? So what are some things you guys would like to do better? What are some things you guys would like to do to improve on from the game? How we did last year, a little bit, right? Right? You guys said you gave up a lot of shots. Why?
I think for planning when we were kind of because they were playing catch up. Yeah, the second half we were playing like the left one instead of the two, and we were kind of like organized for the day.
How was the motion?
Yeah,
Like you guys, a lot of you play together, so we can't have this is our first time playing with each other. We played kind of a lot together with you guys, so communication should always be there, right? Same game, different players sometimes, but it's kind of the same thing. Hey, I like us today. If we win it, let's just not take it away. That seems to be a competitive habit that people have. Find your striker. And secondly, not to support the striker. You have to support the run after you make the pass. Because how many times we play the ball in the wing and nobody supports it when they can run in the box or to support the negative. Okay? Okay. Set plays. Make sure we slow down if we're setting up a corner and we're all focusing on getting in on the corner or defending. Like communication more of it back and our goal. Make sure we are apart. Make sure we're in the right spot, right? Other than that, we take the corner. What?
First, they want to be. Yeah, pan the camera.
Okay. So let's improve on some of that possession and playing the ball through. Support it. Sound good? Yeah. Anything else? Right. And let's probably another couple. Quick 5v2 just so they call captains will see you. Okay.
Oh, and whoever is thinking it, think about that.
Okay. We can do that. We should play the YouTube. Yeah.
Oh.
That way they can collapse and we can play. A lot of that fun. Yes, we do. Okay, 5v2 real quick.
All right, cool. So Chris, reflections on your team talk, things that you liked and things maybe you'd want to do a little bit different.
Things I always do. I mean, I keep it short. I mean, their, attention spans aren't very long. I think if I were to do it again, have more specific things, points before a game, and I talked a little bit about restarts, and that's nothing we really talked about all week or even the game before. It was just more of a communication wise, make sure we do all this, but that was kind of out in left field. Dry erase board, or a lot of times I'll set up cones and stuff so they understand exactly what we're trying to do, or things we've worked on in practice. But the teacher thing is get more input from other people. Like, where do you see it as a center back or as a striker? Like, how do you want the ball? Those questions individually help too. So, but yeah, keep it short, couple points, and we get on with it.
Yeah, I think one thing I've had success with is like getting the players' input and asking them questions that probe, and then I can maybe elaborate on what they've said and give more specific details after that, in order to like give to kind of tie everything in together. Brad,
Um,
any?
yeah, I just had a question. You touched on getting more players input and all that. Like, are you pro and like are you for like actually picking players that don't speak normally and kind of putting them on the spot a little more or less, or is it something that you just kind of like, no, I need somebody else, and then let them come out eventually, right? Because I personally I like to just like, hey, you tell me what's going on, giving some, calling people out on it, but some coaches differ. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't usually just call players out to it like, I don't, it's probably a bad teacher habit too, though. Yeah, I just usually the answer comes or I'll ask more, different questions, ask it a different way, and usually get an answer. But I mean, I'm not opposed to it all because they all have an opinion and they all know what they're doing. And that would
Mhm.
start the communication process with everybody. If they're timid if they're timid in this huddle, they're going to be timid on the field. So, I support that.
Yeah, I think it's just team by team,
Yeah.
especially you just got to give some, younger players, especially a little nudge to like get out of their comfort zone and challenge them to speak up in front of a group. Otherwise, they'll never get out of that shell, like you said, on the field or in the huddle. So,
Right, and the different personalities. Some of them are quiet people, and for the rest of their career, they're going to be trumped by, the people that are always very vocal and loud. So that you might as well start, speaking your opinion now.
mm,
Awesome. All right, so a couple of the key points then for pregame team talks is get the players talking. Make sure it's pretty brief. We don't want to be going for longer than 5 minutes. I think Chris's clip there was about 2.5 minutes. All right, and then making sure there's only a couple points that we can kind of easily digestible points. And now I think we'll move on to the halftime team talk. So obviously one of the key points here in the first half was keeping possession and not just maybe making one pass or two passes and then sending the ball long, as the one player said that was kind of in front of you. What else do we see in the first half, Chris, to now talk about at halftime?
What I was focused on, their movement off the ball and switching the field, and we kind of brought it up there at the game, was switching through field to the back line. We were, trying to force the ball up, let's say the left side when there was, whole field full of players there, rather than just a couple easy passes to get us out moving the other way.
Cool. All right, cool. We'll play this halftime talk. There we go.
Couple questions. If you do it without, say it. I think that's more have the thought. Have to say it. Really well. The ball. She was open. Checking. I pulled down and finally found good stuff. I want to ask you a question. When we win it in back, right? Right? Let's say Claire wins the ball back. What do we want everybody else to do? To open. More specifically,
I feel like our forwards think that it's gonna go.
okay? Would you imagine this? Everybody's on this side of the field. We have to switch the field. How would we do that? Oh, we want field. No. And so what does probably Lauren have to do? Back to that space. Hopefully we can find that six, maybe checking back to Lauren. We release on the other side and we're probably out finding Emily in space, right? Okay. So your thought process here does get it. We've got to be quickly moving to that spot to the point that you got it. Nobody move. Everybody's like, there's not a run here. Yes, support the play. Is that good?
And that was pretty much the story of the weekend for the tournament. Thorgard going off. But at least we heard the first minute and a half there for Chris's team talk. All right, reflections on that, Chris. What did you like? If you were, would you change anything? Yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, you know what? I struggle. I have to remember that they're not in my head to see what I'm seeing. And using players' names is great, but like they always switching around. So like telling that Claire was here or Emily's up there. A lot of times, I will get the cones out and kind of draw it out for them, so they can identify actually how, what they're seeing because they're not in my head. Yeah, I think. getting their input on where to go and what to do. I kind of forced them into answers rather than letting them really think. Like maybe I'm not going to give you the answer, and I kind of gave them the answers in a couple of these. So I'm not actually sure how many of these girls I'm watching these girls on the bench, how many of them are really understanding what I'm trying to do, right? As you get the outside perspective, that's what I'm seeing. But to focus on the first thing was our possession and not kicking the ball away. And I wanted us to find our striker, which we did in the first 7 minutes, right? She never touched the ball, which is kind of hard. I don't know, it's even hard to do. But focus on that point. And then, yeah, switching through that back line, which I would draw out again. But
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point is like a lot of times we think that like we have the answers right, but the players haven't seen maybe the same thing as us or don't have the memory recall to be able to see that exactly. So the more we can use visual aids to help them identify some of those patterns, the better. So it can be cones, it can be a whiteboard. If we have maybe an assistant coach on hand and the game's being live streamed, maybe we can use an iPad and actually show the video of something that happened. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit more time, energy, resources, but that's something that we tried it with the select teams back in St. Louis in the spring, and it worked pretty well. Um, Brad, what did you see that you liked?
Yeah, I definitely saw I loved getting the player perspective. One of the things like I asked was like, what are you guys seeing out there? That's a question I love to ask. Like, what are you guys seeing? Because I know what I see. But I'm not out there playing. I don't have all those, stimuluses around between opponents, player movement and all that. So I want to know what they see from time to time so I can kind of process what they see and maybe help provide some solutions, kind of like what we talked about, Tim. But it's certainly getting their perspective. And when the girl talks about like when we win the ball, I feel like the forward, right? So like that's obviously her perspective. So there's a disconnect between her and the forward potentially. I thought that was like one of the best points I saw in there. I really like that their perspective of it all.
Yeah. I think one of the key things that I like is, all right, we talked about what we wanted to do in the pregame. We wanted to possess the ball, and that's the first thing then Chris talked about at halftime is did we do what we set out we were to do? Because that's the biggest thing. If if we don't analyze that and at least improve, or at least we weren't like decent at what we set out to do, then we've got to address that again, and we need to make sure that we're at least trying to do well at what we intentioned in the first place. So I think that was really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Chris, anything else that you saw? Anything else that you would change? Anything else you liked?
um, yeah, Saved by the Bell there, and the Thorgard there for a minute. No, in the second half, I was gonna just give us a little bit more focus on getting. We had numbers up in the box, and now just combining things we've talked about before with this team is combining to get scoring opportunities because they were there. Numbers were up there, and we seemed really intense and really excited in this game, which is great. But yeah, kind of Saved by the Bell, unfortunately there. So, but again, learning from these things is like looking in the video really gets you a good idea of who's really paying attention and what you really say because you don't really recap those things. Once I send them back on the field, I'm not really thinking of everything I did at halftime, just the 2 points probably, right? But getting some good feedback like this definitely helps.
I had a question with that. Do you find that obviously you girls are right on the bench here? Do you find that the players pay attention a little more, especially at the younger ages? I find that moving them away from the bench, their bags, their phones, their all the little distractions right there, especially like this one where there's a field right behind you. Do you feel like moving them into a little more isolated area could benefit those ones that are paying attention that or not paying attention?
Oh yeah, for sure. And there was a long time where I would just go down to the corner flag, get you away from everything. Also gives them about a minute and a half to just kind of soak in what happened in the first half and be kids, and then you walk up and actually have a conversation with them. But I definitely that helps for sure. Their attention span is already, there's so many stimulus. Let's get away from those things.
Yeah, and these are high school girls that are we're saying short attention spans. Imagine U9
Oh
boys
yeah.
team, right?
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
So
So Brad, you coach more of that age group, the younger age groups. What are some ways that you can get their attention quickly, and what do you do like to make sure that they're focusing for a team talk so they're actually going to learn what you're talking
yeah.
about?
Um, definitely. One of the first things is like I don't start talking until they're listening. And little tips and tricks, right? Like just visually, like, hey, give me one cup, you're listening. I have 2017 boys, and I do that almost every single day. Give me one cup if you're listening. Give me two cups if you're listening. I do that every single day. That gets their attention, and then I ask them a question, right? One of the biggest questions I ask my teams is like, what went well so far? That's like one of the first things I have because we got to build on positives as well. So, and then, but yes, I definitely grabbing their attention and making sure everyone is actually listening. Don't start your talk before that, because it's going to be hard to get them back on track, after you start and they're not listening. But that's just one little tip. I love the corner flag. I go to the corner flag every day. Um, you know, I let them get their water, walk over there. I gather my thoughts and walk over second. So those are all good tips that I use. At the 2017 age group, if I have an assistant coach there, I talk to him beforehand so I have a better picture. But that's usually at the select level or stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, grabbing their attention is one of the most important things to do. And then I ask them a question to lead off with. So
Nice. Yeah, I think finally the last thing is make sure that you review what you talked about before you send the players back on the pitch. Because you might have talked for 5 minutes, there was a conversation. Um, at the very end, sum it all up. Right, here are the two things that we did well. Right, here's the one thing that we need to get better at in the second half. And that way it gives you a little bit of a talking point. At the end of the game, it reminds the players of what you discussed, and brings everything back together, and hopefully they can actually again learn from what you talked about. Guys, anything else to add?
no, thank you,
No,
Chris, for
thanks, man.
yeah, Chris, thank you for letting us use your team and being a good example out there. So I appreciate that.
No, thanks, Brad.
Love it, guys. Thank you.